Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
I'm Faye.
And I'm James. So, Faye, how's your week been?
It's been busy. I went out for lunch, which was very nice, with an angel, a business angel that was. So I had a really good catch up there. Lots and lots of client work, which is good. I think I've said in previous episodes of late, there's just so much going on at the moment, which is very exciting. And we've got the Startup to Scale Up launch, which is now sold out on the 20th of November. So we're on a wait list for that. So it's just a really, really busy November, and it's going to carry on that way. So what about you?
Yeah, I got out a little bit this week. So the first of the Trinity Bradfield talks went really well. Next one is tonight. There's still time to sign up if you want to come along. So go to trinitybradfieldprize.co.uk. Twice at the college this week, actually. So I went to Trinity for a little reception for the cohort of Trinity students that participated in the King's eLab programme, and that was really good. Some really good conversations and a couple of nice ideas that we'll follow up on. And for those listeners that avidly listen to everything we ever say, you may recall that I went to the London AI Hub recently, and Rupert came up to Cambridge to repeat the visit to come see us. So that was nice. And this is the episode that you'll hear all about Rupert and his role at the London AI Hub, so that's well timed.
Nice.
I've also got a surprise for you.
Have you?
Yeah, I thought, how long have we been doing this now?
Is it 3 years or 4 years?
Something like that, yeah. So I thought we should do a report card on ourselves to see how we're doing.
Okay.
I asked AI to come up with what's the ideal characteristics of the ideal podcast host. So why don't we go through that and score ourselves against all of these different criteria?
Oh, God. You know, when I said, I'll just leave the surprise because it's just a bit of spontaneity is a really good thing. This is awful. This is like I'm starting to feel a little bit nauseous. My heart's pounding. Right. Okay. But we have to score. I mean, is this not like a little bit weird scoring ourselves? But
well, I thought, being open with our kind of self-analysis would be a good thing. Either that or you can try and guess all of the things that are on the list.
Let's just do it, but make it quick and painless.
All right, so the first one is authenticity and personality.
Oh, I mean, we're 100% authentic. I mean, we are in everything, aren't we? So personality, I have to say, that's other people can choose that, can't they? I think we're all right.
Okay. Number 2, strong communicate.
Are you right? Hang on a minute. Is it just me answering it? Are you actually going to tell us what the results are?
Well, I don't know, do I? I mean, I think I'll say anything that I don't agree with that you say, right?
Okay.
Just thinking we get through this quickly. Strong communication skills is number 2.
Oh, absolutely superb at that.
Well, if you can't do that would be a problem, right? That's kind of your day job, but
yeah.
Curiosity and preparation. So preparation, I was going to swear then, I'm not very good at, but we kind of get by, don't we?
Well, I think we do prepare. Gemma will be listening to this and getting very irate because Gemma does a lot of preparation. But I think it's fair to say, go back to authentic, we like the conversation. So we do prepare, but then we have a conversation. So quite often, lots of questions go out of the window. But I think that's part of having a conversation, isn't it?
I think we have more fun when it's more spontaneous as well.
What, a bit like this?
A bit like this, yeah. Storytelling ability.
I think we're all right at that. I mean, our newsread is always a little bit interesting because we're just we're not news presenters, are we? But
we're certainly not journalists, as we've said before, no.
No. Well, let's let other people comment on that one. Please feel free to do so.
Hopefully we do get a story from our guests. I think that's the important thing.
Gosh, yes.
Emotional intelligence. There you go. Maybe we should ask our partners about this on our levels of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of all right. I think we're pretty good. The sheer fact we do this podcast shows that we've got that level of we want to find out about people. So I would hope we're all right at that. I don't really care what our partners say about it, quite frankly. God.
Don't think Michelle's ever listened to an episode, but there you go. Technical awareness. This is more on the kind of the production side. So this is really where Carl gets to shine, right? Because
oh God, outsource it. Carl. I mean, 100% Carl. I don't need to know that.
I don't think we've ever regretted the decision that we needed a grown-up to do the technical side of things.
No.
Perfect. Connection to the audience.
Who? Just joking, you lovely, lovely bunch of people. I spoke to someone on Wednesday morning last week, and they were saying that they listened to the podcast as a way of reconnecting with the Cambridge ecosystem. So I'm going to say we do get a lot of feedback from people on the podcast. So I think we are connecting. I mean, I'd like more. I mean, let's go for global dominance, obviously. I'd like to have many more people listening as well, because, we put a lot of work and effort into it. But I think we've got a good connection with the audience.
Well, there's always that, when you do listen to other podcasts, there's always that kind of almost begging, smash the like button, subscribe, follow, share. We try to keep that under control, don't we? So it's not too in your face.
Oh, yeah, we do. But now you've mentioned it, it's because I completely forgot. Yeah, do it all the time, all of the above. Tell your friends.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we really do. We really do appreciate any support you can do to give us to grow the audience.
Is this nearly finished?
It is one more. Yeah, two more.
Okay.
Adaptability, which means experiment with formats and styles.
I don't think we've done it for a while, but we have definitely tried to mix things up, and I think for our own sanity we do.
I think we should do another live, actually, because we didn't do one last year, did we, for Cambridge Tech Week? I know that puts a lot of pressure on us, but we should.
You mean this year? Like 6 weeks ago?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm already thinking about Christmas. And then the final one, which I'm sure we're going to smash, passion.
Absolutely. Bucket loads.
Okay. So unless we get feedback on disagreeing with all of these scores we're giving ourselves, I guess we're going to keep doing it then, right? We're keeping our jobs. No one's getting fired.
Yeah, I'm seeing you on Thursday. Let's have a chat.
Okay. Oh, we're not going out for lunch, are we? It's going to be one of those conversations.
Yeah, just a quick chat. No, I'm joking. We love it, I think. So, oh God, that was so awful. Sorry, everyone. I mean, thanks for bearing with us. Should we just get on with the news now?
Go on then.
Okay, 4 pieces today. So first piece of news is from Arm, who've just released their Q2 revenue numbers. They've topped $1 billion for the third consecutive quarter. CEO Rennie Haas said that record royalties reflected a new high in demand for the Arm compute platform. And he said, as workload complexity accelerates with every new model and every new agent, Arm is the compute platform for the AI era, delivering high-performance, power-efficient AI everywhere. Revenue was up 34% year on year and was above the high end of guidance.
Excellent. And more good news, Cambridge-based Frontier Developments has enjoyed a stirring surge on the London stock market following the strong launch for Jurassic World Evolution 3. Frontier's excellent player engagement and critic reviews following its release on the 21st of October has delivered stronger than expected sales for the game. At just over 2 weeks after release, the sales have now exceeded 500,000 units. Johnny Watts, CEO of Frontier, said, "We're thrilled with the player reception to Jurassic World Evolution 3, which has translated into excellent sales performance."
And the sales, that's what it's all about, isn't it? So next we have Quantinuum, world leader in quantum computing. They have officially launched Helios. With the highest fidelity of any commercial system and first-of-a-kind real-time control engine, Helios is said to enable developers to program a quantum computer in much the same way they program traditional computers. A new modern Python-based programming language called Guppy allows developers to seamlessly combine hybrid compute capabilities, quantum and classical, in a single program. Helios is now available to customers through Quantinuum's cloud service and on-premise offering. Ilyas Khan, founder and vice chair of Quantinuum, said, "Quantum computing has to operate on a global scale in order to fulfill its potential, and Quantinuum is now breaking away from the crowd to lead the industry. Our Helios system moves away from the lab into industry and an environment where scientific results, whilst important, are now being enterprise-driven. This will boost the entire ecosystem."
Tech Nation has released its UK Exit 50 report. The report highlights the founders and the companies in the UK that have turned high growth momentum into successful exits over the past 24 months. Now, there's a ton of data in this report, so we definitely recommend you go and take a look and download it. A couple of highlights. So while the UK remains the epicenter of European innovation, early success that startups enjoy shows the challenge and scale as exits intensifies. Brilliant companies are born here but grow up elsewhere. Acquisition has become the preferred route to exit, with some 94% of companies on the listing exiting this way. However, of these acquisitions, just 30% of the businesses were acquired by companies headquartered locally. By contrast, more than half were acquired by US headquartered companies. In terms of Cambridge headquartered companies featured are Raspberry Pi, who had an IPO with a valuation of $730 million. Human Loop, they had a valuation of $13 million. They were acquired. PlayVusion, they had a valuation of $100 million. They were also acquired. Endomag, who were in the health tech space, they had a $310 million exit, again an acquisition. The final two were Congenica, who were in the health tech space. They had a valuation of $250 million, again an acquisition, and FeatureSpace in the fintech space, which was $940 million, again another acquisition.
Right, some great numbers there, but definitely go look at that report. There's so much more information in there too. So James, you mentioned earlier at the top of the call, you met Rupert Elston, and he is our guest of today. So let's jump straight into that conversation. Hi, Rupert. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I feel like I have to catch up because I know James has already met you. So let's find out a little bit about you first of all, if we can. What's your career journey been like, and how did you find yourself at the London AI Hub?
Yes, absolutely. So for context, I graduated from Oxford University about 6 years ago now with a degree in ancient and modern languages. What one does with that was unclear to me. So I just found myself dipping into various sectors when it came to tech startups in various sort of operational roles, be that product management or business analysis. I found myself for a long stint working for an insurtech. After that, ventured briefly into insurtech VC, and then joined Founders Forum, a massive community for scale-up founders, to broaden my horizons really when it came to the wider UK tech ecosystem. And through that, as I will explain shortly, TechNation, part of Founders Forum Group, is one of the parties behind the hub. So I stepped across at the very end of last year to lead on our activities here.
Amazing. So obviously the London AI Hub launched to a big fanfare of press coverage. But so before we get to that, can you take us back a little bit and set the scene? What kind of gap was identified in the kind of startup support ecosystem where there was the need for the hub to be created? And what are the aims of the hub now that you've got established?
Absolutely. It's looking first of all at all the pieces that exist within the London ecosystem as well as further afield at the UK, is that the pieces exist to become a global player, but that status hadn't quite been achieved yet. Over 3,000 AI startups operating in London, top universities in Imperial, UCL, KCL, Oxford and Cambridge, very easily accessible as well, so no shortage of wonderful talent and academia and research capabilities. But perhaps when comparing to other geographies, not quite that global player. Looking towards European precedents such as Paris and Berlin, we saw that what they had in common was these centralized communities in the form of the Merantix AI campus and Station F in Paris. Why then had London not had something similar? And it took a bit of an investigation into, first of all, the topography of London, but also the AI sector being sector agnostic. Where exactly does this happen? Where is AI in London? It is dotted around the place. We could see that the community, which certainly exists here, had devolved into hotspots and pockets. There was some rhyme and reason to these. King's Cross, because of the proximity to the big tech, Westminster for those more focused on policy in the public sector, and then startup clusters dotted around Shoreditch, White City, Soho, etc. What we then saw with these clusters is that they were isolating themselves and were not interacting as they should. The regrettable outcome of that is that key connections between market leaders, rising stars, and important stakeholders were going unmade. And that fragmentation we saw as prohibitive to the UK really leading the charge when it came to AI. So we looked to end that fragmentation by providing the ecosystem with a permanent home in the London AI Hub. It was intended from the outset as a gateway in for all enthusiasts and practitioners alike to know where to meet, to solve each other's issues, and to foster the partnerships and connections that they needed to drive forward their work. Also with an outlook towards wider society, that we hope that this could be somewhere through which we could showcase the best of British AI, what brilliant solutions are being developed here, how society might benefit. But equally, who was doing it, that we wanted to try and remove that facelessness, all towards building public confidence in AI.
That's really interesting, and I definitely want to go into some of those comments in a little bit more detail. But you mentioned TechNation at the top of the call. It was also founded by Merantix Capital and London AI Founders. Both of those groups I don't actually know. Can you tell us a little bit about how that grouping came together as well?
Absolutely. This is a partnership greater than the sum of its parts. TechNation, to start with, is a behemoth when it comes to British tech, has an oversight over the entire ecosystem, strong relationships with policymakers and regulators as well. So it's very much grounded at the heart of the British tech scene. Merantix is a German venture group who have built and run an AI campus in Berlin, as mentioned. So where they bring enormous expertise is that blueprint for a hub. They understand the importance of proximity when it comes to bringing together these founders and companies to support one another. The syndicate of London AI founders is led by Hussein Kasai, who founded Onfido before exiting and has since founded Quench, which is an AI enterprise research tool. He understands the journey and hurdles of AI founders better than anyone, being one himself, but crucially is just well plugged into that nexus of AI founders in London.
You identified that there was a need, there was, you wanted to bring everyone together to create this showcase, you found the partners, but then there was also, just going back to what James said about the fanfare and the whole press launch, it ended up being timed with the government's AI Opportunities Action Plan. Was that just serendipitous how everything came together, or did you actually schedule everything to hit at that particular point in time with the government paper?
I would suggest it was accelerated serendipity, that towards the end of last year, this was very much in the ideation stage. We were aware of this piece of legislation coming out, and it was a wave of interest that couldn't be missed. It would have been detrimental to the growth that we've since seen to simply be a footnote released 2 or 3 weeks after the fact. So we were able to tie in with the announcement of the AI Opportunities Action Plan. We're still very much in a building phase. That's, for example, I still was using a private email client, was not yet set up on Google Workspace. So much of that operational capability came in the following weeks. We were then able to hold a launch event in mid-February and opened our doors to AI companies and started our formal events calendar 2 weeks afterwards.
Okay, so it's very much the normal startup journey then, where all the marketing operations, everything all came together, all as it just happened to, rather than diligent planning.
Absolutely. Very, very much a startup vibe.
No, that's great. So thanks for sharing that, Rupert. So you mentioned the launch event was in February. So, some 8 months on now from launch, how's the progress been? How have you seen the community kind of forming in Farringdon, and what kind of reception have you had to the activities?
I'll start with the reception first, that we operate as a non-profit. So the benefit that we derive from that is there was very little cynicism. So from the outset, everyone was extremely supportive of what we were looking to do, and that was reflected in the buzz on LinkedIn post-announcement. There seemed to be many people in the comments of various posts celebrating the fact that this was happening, and if anything, lamenting the fact that it was not happening 2 or 3 years ago, of course, today being the second best time. With that initial wave of interest, it meant that we already had something of a core community. We already had so many people who were wanting to be kept in the loop on the events about what opportunities might be involved. And whilst we sat on that for a few weeks to be able to build up internally and prepare to launch, when we did so, everyone was raring to go with it. From the very first events that we hosted, people came along. There was never an issue with signups or trying to publicize these, but because that community aspect, it seemed that people were desperate to engage in. Since that time, we've hosted nearly 40 events. We've had around 3,000 event attendees and some amazing speakers, and the feedback has reflected that. So to be able to say that we have hosted nearly 3,000 people is for us a remarkable achievement. And it seems to us that we really have done our best to engage all different stakeholders and all different AI profiles within the ecosystem. That is a singular pillar of the AI Hub. The next is around our residential program, which I'm sure we'll go into further. That is for us about establishing an open collaborative environment for AI companies to base themselves, that they can help one another, solve each other's problems by offering unique perspectives that might not otherwise have been considered, whilst we look to help these companies too through targeted connections and introductions to key stakeholders in policy and regulation, etc. Those companies that have moved in with us, we've had 15 move in. Of the 12 who've been with us for more than 3 months, 9 of them have expanded their teams, 5 have closed funding rounds. So whilst that is through their own amazing work, it is very gratifying for us to be able to at least claim something of their victory. So it seems that those who have been involved here have seen success, and it is wonderful for us to be able to shout about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as Faye commented on it being a startup journey for you as well as your companies, any surprises? Has it gone to plan, or anything to share in terms of insights on putting this together over the last 8 months?
There's a new surprise every week, so it depends on what level of recency you'd like to explore here. The first surprise that I encountered very early on was my own misconceptions of the AI ecosystem and the situation for a relatively novel startup founder. I somewhat assumed that, as an example, the buckets of headcount sizes would be teams of 1 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, and 20 plus. And there'd be a degree of uniformity across those, and was shocked very quickly to learn that that wasn't the case. That these new teams coming through, having just raised a pre-seed or even a seed round, would remain as lean as possible and would be a team of 5. They would begrudgingly welcome on an extra team member or 2, but not much further than that. There would then perhaps come a point where they would scale extremely quickly, but they then themselves noted this massive paradigm shift in the journey compared to someone who'd done Series A 3 years ago. And with that comes more credibility lent to founders who've gone through their journey much more recently. That when we look to bring in these speakers to discuss the scaling, actually the founders that other founders want to listen to are the ones that have done it within the last year. Someone who raised their Series A 3 years ago is not really of interest because of the shift that they've seen. Otherwise, there are, as mentioned, there's surprises every week. As example, just what's going on in London at the time when, say, there's a bit of a bug going around and we suddenly notice that dropout rates for events are much, much higher. What we also had to do was navigate the cultural differences between us and Berlin. As mentioned, the Merantix AI campus has been a wonderful blueprint for us and has informed so many of our guidelines and processes. But a small thing, that when one has breakfast events in Berlin, they start at 9:30. In London, that simply doesn't work. One has to start at 8 or 8:30. So whilst, as mentioned, we have had this great wealth of evidence and experience that we can apply to ourselves, you still need to work it out for that more nuanced take.
But that's also the fun of it, right? So if we didn't have the surprises, the job would be pretty boring, right?
Absolutely. And one of the anecdotes I tell about the initial stages of the hub was quite how varied the day-to-day was. That back in March, I had these back-to-back calls. One with a very high-profile AI founder about encouraging him to speak at an upcoming event. And immediately afterwards, I was speaking with someone from Gumtree to haggle over the price of lockers. Carolyn from Founders Forum /Tech Nation called me afterwards to say, how did it go? Fantastic. I got 50 quid off. That's not the one I was talking about, Rupert.
Yeah, definitely. That again, it's the art of being the startup founder and the person in charge, isn't it? I mean, I do have to say, I thought that the comment you just made about people wanting the more recent experience is actually something I think a lot of our listeners can take on board as well, because certainly here in Cambridge, we have this wealth of people that have got so much experience, and we tend to roll all of these people out. But actually today it's quite different than it was last year, than it was 3 years, and certainly 30 years ago. So I think there's place for all of those things. But that's, I think that's a really, really interesting point you just made, Rupert. So you talked about these 15, you did say 15, didn't you?
Yes, great.
So the 15 early stage companies. Can you just tell us a little bit more about them? What are they actually working on? Are they in all different types of fields? I mean, is there anything that you can share about the dynamics of those companies?
Absolutely. With, as mentioned, AI being sector agnostic in London, that is reflected in the companies in the hub. There is a very, very broad range. To provide some examples, one of our companies, Heidi, is an assistant for doctors. So it provides meeting notes, follow-ups, prescriptions. Another company, Quench, is an enterprise research tool to ease the way in which employees can find relevant documents and information without having to bug everyone they work with. Someone who's looking to automate the planning permission process, called Xylo. A research engine, which is called Corpora. We have a company that is working on AI and wearables, called Performer, and many others. They are different from one another, but where the benefit is derived is they are building in similar ways. They can find those commonalities. And if anything, the fact that they have built in different sectors provides that novel perspective to one another. That when we say grab a drink on a Thursday evening and jump into a meeting room, people will demo to one another. And afterwards, someone in the room will say, fascinating to see how you built in this way, but why? Why did you not build in this way? With some of the teams being quite lean in size and being somewhat derived of diversity and perspective, that is super useful to them to be introduced to this new way of thinking. So, as mentioned, there is that collaborative nation to this. And with them being so different, it's only enhancing the input that they have into their products. When I then also look at the company sizes, it's again a bit of a mix. That our smallest company is 2 co-founders. Our largest, Heidi, the assistant for doctors, is around 40 now. They just announced their Series B last week. And everything in between, that we look to be able to provide that ongoing support, that there is something of a chartered journey from joining in the early stages of 2 to 3 full-time team members, always having that flexibility to grow in size. And that is something that we can very much assist with. And then you're getting to a point where you need your own private space, and you're getting sort of to that critical mass where you don't require those outside perspectives as much anymore, but are still beneficial. And then the end point is that you scale to such a size that you probably need your own building.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to come in there with a supplementary question to Faye's question. I mean, because there's obviously a lot of similarity in the roles that we both do, at the AI Hub and the Bradfield. And I was kind of curious just to explore, obviously they're multifaceted roles, right? So you're out there building partnerships, you're building community, as well as, trying to fill the workspace with startups. So, in an environment like London, where there's so much choice in terms of where companies can be based, are you actively scouting and recruiting companies to come in and be co-located in the AI Hub? Is there an ambitious kind of co-location growth plan for the hub? Or are you more relaxed that these startups can kind of be anywhere but engage through the events programs and all those kinds of things?
Absolutely, a very good question. So first and foremost, the hub is not intended as an ivory tower, that it is not simply for those that are housed within its walls that derive the benefits that we look to offer. So all of our events are completely free to attend. We look to occasionally employ application processes to ensure that we're getting the right profiles in the room. Say we have a founder investor meetup and you're a junior developer, that one's probably not quite right for you. But if you are an AI founder, then of course, please come along. So there isn't necessarily that exclusivity that founders feel they have to be housed here in order to benefit. It is open in that sense. With London as well being a large city, there is only one hub. And that brings its own difficulties with it. That when founding this, we thought, well, where does it go? One might well get a great large space in, say, Stratford, but are people going to trek across from northwest London to there every day? Unlikely. Even to go for events? Unlikely. So we have gone as central as possible. understanding too that is not going to be feasible for a lot of people to get to every day. It might well be sensible for them to come along to events, but a daily commute, unlikely. What that has then meant when it comes to how we've filled the space is we have left it to be quite organic. With those who come through our events, it's a very natural way of getting to know us, getting to know the mission, getting to know some of the activities, as well as getting to know the location. So it hasn't been active outreach on our part too much. There have been times where we have looked to bring in some great companies and have done so. But otherwise, it has just been through community members wanting to get even further involved compared to simply coming to events.
Yeah, okay. And I guess that's a nice segue then to maybe share some of the conversation that we had when, I came down to take a look around. You talk there about, your thoughtfulness about how the London ecosystem works, but obviously we were exploring how these connections might broaden out into Cambridge and, Oxford and the Golden Triangle and actually across the whole UK. So maybe we should spend a little bit of time talking about that. What's your thinking there about building from the base in Farringdon and doing more across the UK?
That was very much part of the mission from the outset, that although the name is the London AI Hub, it wasn't an entirely London exclusive endeavour, but eventually it'd be wonderful to have the Glasgow AI Hub and the Manchester AI Hub, probably looking a bit too further into the future just now. But at the very least, what we look to do in terms of those who might well benefit from the insights is we are looking to record any events that we host so that those insights are not just limited to our event space, that they can be shared more widely and that people can benefit. What was also very much on our minds when beginning this is that we felt behind. And when feeling behind, the worst thing you can do is try and catch up in isolation. So from the beginning, relationships with SaaS and the campus in Berlin and all of the learnings that they could provide were extremely useful to us. And we have looked to maintain such relationships and partnerships going forward. On a more global sense, that we hope the London AI Hub can function as somewhere where you can step off the plane when expanding to the UK and enter the ecosystem by walking into the London AI Hub. That one might not know who the right investors to talk to are, right founders, that you can meet them here. Similarly, then, we want to be able to have those relationships where if our teams are expanding to France, then we can provide that reciprocal engagement with SaaS. Within London, this is still quite strategically placed. Looking further afield to Oxford and Cambridge, I know that we spoke about that, James, and how easy it is to get there. For now, we have largely concentrated on just building this core community in London, and the next stages of strategy for us will be how we expand that further.
It's great. I like what you just said there, Rupert, about when you feel behind, don't rush to catch up, because I think there is that kind of motivation sometimes, isn't there? But keeping very strict on, let's build London first. Let's build that competence, build the community. It's a really important thing. And especially remembering you're only 8 months in to a live programme here. So I think that's great. So my last question is actually going back to the government paper. So you launched, serendipitously at that time. Are you still working with the government on what AI policy is? Are you able to provide inputs? And I wondered if you could just share some insights onto that work.
Absolutely. Our relationships with both policymakers and regulators are relatively informal, but what we have looked to provide from the start is towards our community an ear into which they can speak on how they see policy and regulation being shaped, and towards the policymakers and the regulators, it's all well and good being able to look at these overarching industry insights and derive conclusions from them. But what we have as a community of founders and operators, investors, all stakeholders who want to see the ecosystem develop, hence are very honest and forthright in the opinions that they're looking to provide to these stakeholders. So when it comes to the work that we have with the policymakers and regulators, it is centered around that. It's about putting them in the same room together to be able to speak. As examples on this, a couple of months ago, we hosted some AI policy advisors from the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, just in our hub kitchen with all of our residents. Not much format provided, simply, if you had a magic wand, what would you look to change? Just to provide those anecdotal tales on problems that they're facing, whether that be around public sector procurement or finding investment. When one looks at, say, the policymakers, it's the inverse of the VC. For a venture capitalist, if you make one right decision out of 20 and that becomes a unicorn, you're very good at your job. For the policymakers, is they do not want to create a policy environment by which that one unicorn founder leaves. So what we want to do with that is to be able to provide all those different perspectives, all those very nuanced edge cases to prevent that from happening. Similarly with the regulators, that I think what we have seen, and something that I garnered from when I attended the Joint Regulators Conference back in, I think, April, was that there tends to be a bit of a latency period when it comes to regulation, that the UK is typically unwilling to set up a new regulator when it comes to a given innovation. It is up to the pre-existing regulators to bring in the relevant expertise, get themselves all up to speed, and then launch forward. That now seems to have happened with the regulators, and they seem willing to hear what we have to say and what our companies have to say. So especially Ofcom, we hosted a roundtable with them a couple of weeks ago around a report that they'd written on AI. The simple format was to share this with some select founders who are working in areas very specific and relevant to Ofcom's work, and to come and provide their feedback to the Ofcom senior leadership, who are extremely willing to hear this. We host a lot of other policy events as well, such as actually an evaluation of the AI Opportunities Action Plan 6 months on, so our 6th-month birthday as well. That it is just throughout creating that open dialogue between the two that they can just be heard.
Yeah, and I think that was music to my ears of Ofcom coming to you saying, hey, this is where we're up to, let's test it out, because we've got more chance of things succeeding if it's done with, that way round as opposed to just dictated.
Exactly.
I mean, it's been a really interesting conversation, Rupert, and I'm glad that we've managed to get you on relatively early into the kind of journey of the AI Hub. So that leads me to my final question. What does the next 12 months look like for you and the Hub? And if people are listening and want to get involved, where do they go?
Our focus in the very immediate future is maintaining the rhythm that we've built up. That what we have looked to do over the last couple of months is to better segment our events into various series to obviously get more brand exposure for them, but also to consolidate given communities for events. As an example of what we have next week, we have a showcase of demos for companies looking to raise pre-seed in the next 6 months. What we have noticed with these demo sessions is that there are fantastic practitioner communities which demo to one another. We'll probably leave that alone, but focus ourselves more towards investors, public sector procurement and corporate buyers. So that's something that we'll be doing regularly to be able to have that visual aspect of things. On Wednesday, we have an event called AI on Draft, which is a very targeted networking session for a very specific cross-section of AI. So on this occasion, it is decarbonisation in manufacturing. The previous one was around AI in supply chain and logistics. So what that reflects is a stage in community growth where we can now get very specific. In the initial stages, one had to be relatively broad of, this is a founder investor meetup, and that's all the remit that we're going for. The community growth has allowed us to really explore those cross sections more, so expect a lot more of that. Similarly, with the companies that we have, it is building that out further, that we have more space coming available to us, so it is bringing in another 5 to 10 companies and incubating those as best we can, furthering that aspect of collaboration within our space, opening up more space for the wider community as well. One of the greatest problems that I've faced throughout all of this is after a given event, getting a message from someone on LinkedIn saying, why didn't I hear about this? And I have to turn around and say, that is the exact problem I'm looking to solve.
Yeah, I know that problem well. So, that's great. And like I say, it's been really insightful having you on, and looking forward to hosting you up in Cambridge when you can come up and take a visit to us as well.
Look forward to it.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you both.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.